And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. What a weird news day this has been. I mean, seriously, we have odd news days now and then. It happens. We have news days with unexpected twists and turns and stuff. But we very rarely get stuff that's this weird, just like over the transom, you know? Here you go. Make of this what you will.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation, the beginnings of that investigation. The Mueller report, I wish, covered the oranges, how it started.
I had no idea it started with oranges. I mean, now it all makes sense. Everybody's been teasing him about his makeup tone all this time, but every time he came out that color, it was a signal about the oranges. The oranges? It was so weird. The president today lamenting the citrusy beginnings of the Mueller report, and I'm sure they are juicy. Enough to fill a whole novel of pulp fiction. Very pulpy. What the heck was that? And it wasn't just like one time. He kept going on and on about the oranges, the oranges. That was very weird. But that came in the midst of the president doing a public 180, a public U-turn on whether or not he wants the Mueller report to be released. Just a couple of weeks ago, on March 20th, the president was asked, does the public have the right to see the Mueller report? President Trump replied to that question, quote, I don't mind. Frankly, I told the House, if you want, let them see it. Let it come out. Let people see it. I want to see the report, he said. I want to see the report. And you know who wants to see it? Tens of millions of people. That was March 20th. Then 5 days later, so a week ago Monday, the president was asked if he wants to see the Mueller report, quote, completely released. The president responded, quote, it wouldn't bother me at all. Wouldn't bother me at all. Now today, though, apparently light has dawned on Marblehead. Light has dawned on Mount Tropicana. And the president has U-turned on that issue. The president is now publicly decrying that the Democrats want too much released from the Mueller report. Literally, within the past 2 weeks, he's been like, let it all out. I can't wait to see it. Everybody wants to see it. Now he's like, why do they want to see it? It's a disgrace that they want to see it. What just occurred to you about what might be in the Mueller report, sir? Today was the deadline to release to Congress the full Mueller report, the deadline set by Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler and 5 other committee chairmen in the House. Attorney General William Barr appears to have blown off that deadline as he continues to sit on the Mueller report and allow no one to see it. As of tonight, he has had no formal response to that congressional deadline. But that means, according to the Democrats in Congress, that Barr should expect to have the report subpoenaed tomorrow. Congressman Jerry Nadler and the other Democratic chairmen have now sent Attorney General Barr this letter. Quote, on Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019, the House Judiciary Committee plans to begin the process of authorizing subpoenas for the report and for underlying evidence and materials. Wednesday, April 3rd. That's tomorrow. Quote, while we hope to avoid resorting to compulsory processes, if the department is unwilling to produce the report to Congress in unredacted form, we will have little choice but to take such action. During your confirmation hearing in January, you stated that your goal would be to provide as much transparency as I can, consistent with the law. The chairman continued, quote, we expect the department will take all necessary steps without further delay, including seeking leave from the court to disclose the limited portions of the report that may involve grand jury materials in order to satisfy your promise of transparency and to allow Congress to fulfill its own constitutional responsibilities. So this is them saying, hey, listen, we're going to subpoena you. We'd prefer not to. You said you were going to be transparent. But by the way, if you really are going to try to be transparent here, don't just tell us there's grand jury material in it and you say that means you can't look at it. If there's grand jury material, you need to get a court order so the court can allow the release of that grand jury material. You ought to be doing that. At another point in their letter to Attorney General William Barr today, the Democrats say that in Jerry Nadler's recent conversation with Barr about the Mueller report, Barr, quote, suggested in that call that redactions made in accordance with Rule 6E, meaning redactions made because of grand jury information, quote, will be substantial. So this is a public-facing letter that they have sent, right? They sent this to the Attorney General. They also made it available publicly. In this public-facing document, they are basically letting us know that what they're surmising from Barr's comments to them thus far is that the Mueller report is going to be redacted within an inch of its life, on the grounds that it contains a ton of grand jury information, which William Barr is taking it upon himself to cut out, not only before he shows it to the public, but before he even shows it to Congress. The Democrats want him instead to get a court order allowing for that grand jury information to be disclosed. That is what happened in Watergate. That is what happened in the Ken Starr report. That is what has happened in every other investigation like this. That is what the Democrats in Congress would like to happen now. So far, no response on that from the Attorney General whatsoever. The Democrats today also included a long legal analysis for the Attorney General, explaining on what grounds they believed they should be able to see an unredacted version of the report, and why they need to see the report now, why there is some urgency as to their request, as again, Barr continues to sit on it for going on 2 weeks now. Because I think that portion of the Democrats' letter to Barr was supposed to explode like a little bit of a firework, that legal analysis that they sent him starts off right at the top with this. Quote, the Attorney General's March 24th letter indicates that the special counsel found that President Trump may have criminally obstructed the department's investigation of Russia's interference in the 2016 election and related matters. The special counsel pointedly stated that the evidence the investigation uncovered, quote, does not exonerate the president of obstruction and includes potentially criminal acts not yet known to the public. It is difficult to overstate the seriousness of those actions if in the wake of an attack by a hostile nation against our democracy, President Trump's response was to seek to undermine the investigation rather than take action against the perpetrators. These are not only matters of addressing the harm that has occurred. These are urgent, ongoing concerns. As has been publicly reported and referenced in the March 24th letter, multiple open investigations referred by the special counsel's office to other U.S. attorneys may implicate the president or his campaign, transition, inauguration, or businesses. These important inquiries could be compromised if the president is seeking to interfere with them. So in other words, hand it over. They lay out in detail why all of the different categories of redaction the Attorney General says he's going through right now to cut stuff out of the Mueller report before he allows anybody to see it. They go through in detail why none of those categories of redactions should apply to a report that is released to Congress. Not the grand jury stuff, not the classified material, not the ongoing investigation material. All that stuff can be handled and is handled, as a matter of course, by Congress with sensitive documents. But again, this is a fight now. This is the Democrats trying to pry loose the Mueller report in its unredacted form. It's now 11 days since Mueller submitted it. Tomorrow, unless it is finally shook loose from the Attorney General's office, they're telling us that we are going to get the first subpoena for the Mueller report, and then we'll have to see how the Attorney General and the Justice Department respond to that subpoena. So tomorrow should be a big day. Tick-tock.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.